The opinions expressed in the following program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers or Rogers TV.
Welcome back to A Singles Game. We're talking about green flags. You know, when you're dating somebody or when you're on a date and you start getting into it and you're like, oh, red flag, red flag, red flag, don't like them. Well, we're talking about green flags. Why don't you look at them and say, I love your blue eyes, right? So we have Ashley with us. Thank you so much for coming back. You were supposed to be here in our first episode. Fortunately, couldn't make it, but thank you.
Oh, thank you.
I'm so excited to be talking green flags because it's like so uplifting, right? All the time we're talking about things that you shouldn't do.
Yeah.
There's so many great things about dating to embrace.
There is.
So in terms of, I'm talking to Patricia and Michael, don't worry, you don't have to get too personal because you're a professional, aren't you?
Yes.
So you two, when you were out in the dating scene, what were red flags for you?
We're going to focus on the negative.
We're going to talk about the negatives. We're going to talk about the negatives, and we're going to talk about what you did like. So what did you not like?
Okay, one of the main things, a guy on dates who just talks about himself.
Okay.
All the time. Someone that takes himself a little too seriously. Not a fan of that either.
Okay.
Yeah, I had met a few girls that had, they weren't marriage material. I just knew that they enjoyed Friday and Saturday night, and that extended throughout the week. So just, people that didn't have their act together. Their priorities weren't.
And what were your green flags?
Oh.
The opposites of that, someone that takes an interest in your life, someone who has a positive outlook. Those are huge things for me.
Okay.
For sure, yeah.
Beauty. I like, eyes that I could stare at it for days. Kind of like yours. You've got those beautiful brown eyes. But there's so many things that come up, right? Like, just the way someone handles, if someone takes the extra initiative to write a really nice birthday card. I'm like, wow, you took the time to do that. You've got this
So you like details.
Oh, I love
He's very romantic. Yeah. That hard shell on the outside, just break right through it. So, Ashley, what do you think the reasoning is for us to look at the negative before the positive?
Ooh, that's a very good question. I think that's a tendency that we're all used to, right? Is to jump to a conclusion and to look for the bad in situations. But I think today's topic of the green flags is actually a good turnaround because we don't always put a lot of our attention on the good, right? So why not flip it around?
And so, is that like a North American thing? Because North Americans are always like, I don't like this, but I kind of like this, but I hate this more. Like, we just hate things in North America, don't we?
Complain about the snow all the time.
Yeah. So, do you think it's our culture or? We're getting into some anthropology here, aren't we? Look at that.
Perhaps.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So in terms of green flags, then let's jump back a little bit. Thinking about things that we love in people. What do we just love in a partner? Rather than I hate you, what is just so hot or so beautiful?
Well, Ashley, you were mentioning something interesting. I found something about negotiables and non-negotiables. So it's more about prioritizing what you are looking for in someone, and then maybe some of the smaller stuff can be on the wayside. Like, what is a negotiable versus a non-negotiable?
No, I think it's a good question. I think what's helpful is to have an idea of what you're looking for in a partner. Because a lot of times we go in there so open that we don't necessarily know, values, communication styles, sociability, family. So once we have that clear idea and clear outline, then from there can we say, okay, you know what, these things are so important to me, this is non-negotiable, right? Versus, okay, you know what, I'm a little more flexible if, you're more of an extrovert and I'm more of an introvert. That's fine then. So
it's a personal journey before you go out there dating, when those green flags will pop up because you already know, I want someone stable. I want someone.
And like personally, when I'm thinking about my green flags, right? Like when I first when I entered the dating scene, that I wasn't really on the dating scene for very long. But when I was in it, I was like, okay, you know what? To be completely honest, I want them to have deep eyes, and I want them to be physically attractive. I want a nice jaw. I want somebody that's nice to me and that's genuine, rather than somebody who's constantly like, it's all about me, right? Because it's kind of bad, but that's how I am, so I didn't want the other person to always be like that. Otherwise, just be too much of me, and then me, and right? So do opposites really attract? Is that a thing?
Sure. Yeah, definitely. Opposites attract, but you can also be attracted to somebody with similar qualities as well.
Okay.
So, there's not really one cookie cutter, I think, approach to it.
So if
Gotcha.
you're getting green flags and you're getting red flags simultaneously, how do you kind of weigh the pros and the cons? I love everything about them, but they seem to be, maybe a player. We were talking about that earlier. There's some traits of a player there, but everything else I like about them adds up. How do you figure that out?
I think you need to understand within yourself, again, what's negotiable and what's not negotiable, right? What I'm willing to flex on, because some things I can, negotiate with, but others I don't really want to, date somebody with this characteristic.
It's interesting we're talking about negotiables and non-negotiables. It almost sounds like we're in a job interview, right?
Yeah.
And that's what you're doing. You're interviewing somebody
dating.
to see if your lives can become one, right?
What you can compromise with.
Exactly. So how do we turn our interview with our potential partner into a look for positive characteristics?
Well, what's interesting I find is green flags, there are some that you'll be able to see right away, right? Like what you were mentioning, the eyes or, the jawline. Yeah, but I think a lot of the huge ones, you won't necessarily know until you're a few months into it. Like a big green flag for me is, how do they fight when we're in an argument? Like, do they play dirty with like bad names and attacking the person, or are they willing to reach a compromise and work it out like an adult? And
Because you really see the worst in people when you're breaking up, right? That's the real
it's
person that you're
huge.
seeing.
So, and you're obviously not going to know that on the first date, like you have to wait for someone to kind of drop the guard down and show their true colors.
We should just
It's
pick a
always the
fight.
best foot forward.
There should be
Yeah,
a fight on the
exactly.
first date. Just be like, I hate that napkin.
Just pick a fight just to see,
Your shoes are disgusting.
You probably won't get a second date, I feel like. Maybe.
Because people could get confused with someone on their best behavior for that job interview / date. I hope you guys are better daters than job interviewers. I know my dates are always epic and grand. But anyway, people could be just putting their best foot forward. So is there any subtle green flags to look for that couldn't be acted? They're just genuine traits. You know what I mean?
See, on a first date, Guy was saying that first dates can end up just kind of being pretty fake, right? Like, it's like, hi, I'm this. We're just, tipping our toes in the water, How can we make sure that the first date is actually effective if it's going to be in terms of moving forward rather than staying in the same spot?
You know what a subtle green flag is, actually, that a lot of people have said? You see how they treat the waitress on the date. Yeah, because if you think about it, they're not trying to impress the waitress, they're trying to impress you. And sometimes true colors do show out with, they're kind of rude to them,
I don't know, though.
I like that one.
Yeah.
I don't know about that, though, because...
Well, if they're a jerk to the waitress, then they're a jerk.
Well, see, okay, we can get into the whole player scenario, but see, I'd like to think I'm a nice person, but sometimes I'm not, to be completely honest with you. Sometimes I'm just not in a good mood, and anybody who knows me understands that when I'm in a bad mood, it's
the
not
waitress gets it?
Well, no, not the waitress gets it. I'll be nice to the waitress.
See,
I'll be
so
really nice to the
then
waitress.
you're a nice person.
But then I'll be really rude to the person I'm with. To be completely, if I'm in a deep conversation with somebody and I know them, then I'm going to be rude.
So for your partner, that's not a red flag because they're saying, this is something I can work with. This is character. This is interesting. This is intrigue. But for others, that might be this person's a complainer.
And how do you separate that, Ashley?
I think a little bit comes from the friendship you have with that person too. First dates, it's hard because you are putting that best foot forward, but you're trying to get to know that person as well. So, if you have a good friendship with somebody, that could be another way to
friendships
sort of
help.
test.
Okay.
Yeah.
So should we date our friends?
Why not?
A lot of green flags there already.
You've already established what you like, right? Yeah.
No, it's true.
And that's fun. And there are, of course, substantial green flags that we should pay attention to. Do you want to tell us what those are? Because you probably have a better understanding than I would.
Oh, I think generally green flags. What?
I think employed. It's a really good one.
Haven't murdered anyone,
No
things
criminal
like
records.
that. Yeah.
Good communication skills, sociability. But what's a green flag for me might be a different green flag for you. So, is there really one complete answer? Right? Again, think about the different areas of life: sociability, family, culture, home, education, spirituality. So, what's important
Status?
to you in those areas?
Everything,
and having an understanding of what's important to you in those areas might be your green flags.
Because something that could go both ways is having a lot of money. right? Like somebody that has a lot of money versus not having a lot of money, right?
Yeah, but
What's
it's a
important to
personal-
you.
Right. If that's on your checklist, then boom, green flag, right ahead.
Perfect. Okay, guys. Ashley, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, Guy, of course. And this has been Patricia and Michael.
Game, talking about green flags.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining us here in a singles game. We'll be back for you next week. Take care. Talk to you soon.